I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but here I am. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing well. We got hit with COVID over the last month, and we've all been on the recovery. And I'm sure some of you have probably encountered that too, whether it was you or a friend. And man, it hit us all pretty hard. And so even after getting COVID, uh, it still takes a couple of weeks, even after you feel better and the symptoms are gone. I'm finding that my energy levels are not what they were prior to getting COVID. So I don't know if that's age or just a effect of having COVID. I'm not sure. But I've still been able to pump out a couple of videos on Steve Reeves with some photos and things like that. So I hope you've enjoyed that. So today we're going to get back to doing a regular video. And I've got 3 or 4 topics I want to talk about. And the first one is my friend Barry, who shares a Steve Reeves horse arena memory. So you're seeing on the picture there, Steve Reeves Ranch in Valley Center. And I had a text from my friend Barry recently regarding a Steve Reeves experience. Now, Barry became acquaintances with Steve back in the 1970s, and he visited Steve's ranch and so on and so forth. Barry and I have become friends due to our mutual respect and admiration for Steve Reeves. So every once in a while, Barry and I talk, and he shares a memory from his time being around Steve. And I've met so many people online, telephone conversations, that either, they had a friend or a dad or whatever that knew Steve, and they've shared just an avalanche of stories. And so, I want to share these stories with you fans of Steve Reeves. And I also want to be able to document this stuff so that 10 or 15, 20 years from now, I can remember all the details. So I've put these stories and pictures and articles up on a membership site. That's where you can find a couple of really interesting stories about Barry and his meeting with Steve. Barry just gave me this story on January 31st of 2022. He was walking with Steve by his arena, his horse arena. Steve was telling Barry about his favorite horse breed, the Morgan, which a lot of you probably are, familiar with. Steve raised Morgan horses, and he was also a member, and I believe the president of the Morgan Horse Club of San Diego County. So Barry told Steve that he knew of the impressive breed, having watched Wonderful World of Disney, an episode called Justin Morgan Had a Horse. Though not the largest of horse breeds, Steve loved the Morgan for its diverse abilities and brightness. Regarding the arena, Barry says, I believe I had mentioned how he had built it with the lower 3 to 4 feet angled in to leave clearance for his knee and leg. And that's not his actual arena right there, but it's the best shot I could find where you can see that angling in down there towards the bottom. Steve picked up this idea while he was in Europe. In a phone conversation with Steve some years later, Barry says he was giving his condolences regarding Aleen's passing in 1989, and Steve told Barry that his Morgan Club friends had rallied around him, Steve, and he had been doing okay. So thanks for that, Barry. I appreciate it. I love hearing these types of stories from friends and fans of Steve Reeves. It seems that we can't get enough because Steve avoided the spotlight. He wasn't always in the news like most celebrities today. If he was in the news, it was usually because he had something with substance, which leads me into the next topic. All right, in this next story about Steve, I'm going to share a video of a CrossFit activity from the 2016 CrossFit Games. So I'm just going to let the video play here.
Matt Fraser and Ben Smith in a foot race. Are you kidding me? What can this guy do? Matt Fraser is going to win his heat.
You've got to be kidding me.
So amazing video. Matt Fraser went on to win the CrossFit Games that year and is a 5-time CrossFit champion. Now, I'm not trying to make this video about CrossFit, but I find this very interesting because there is a Steve Reeves connection here. And I was recently talking to someone about Matt Fraser, and we were remembering that clip that I just showed you with the sprint, and you heard the crowd's reaction in that video. And that's because Matt Fraser hasn't always been known as an endurance guy. He is a weightlifter. That's how he started out. And we're talking about a guy that snatches, over 300 pounds, and it's just a brute when it comes to the strength events. But he hasn't always been good at the endurance events. So he hired a coach by the name of Chris Henshaw. And so if you want to be the best, you hire the best. And so Matt Fraser hired Chris Henshaw to teach him breathing. And this is where we get into the Steve Reeves connection. So Henshaw is an endurance athlete. He's done Ironman events. He placed second one year in the brutal Hawaii Ironman. And he talks about power breathing. And I believe that was his term for it. He teaches how to breathe correctly. He teaches that when you get in trouble, and if you've ever run a mile or 2 miles or 3 miles, then you know what I'm talking about. You're running along and your breathing gets out of whack, and all of a sudden your brain kind of like, you get scared because you're not sure if you're going to be able to keep running. And so he teaches athletes how to train the brain. So in power walking, Steve Reeves talks about rhythmic breathing. And that's exactly what Chris Henshaw teaches. Now remember, Steve Reeves was talking about power walking in the early 80s. I believe power walking came out in 1983. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from the book. The particular form of deep breathing I recommend is rhythmic. The rhythmic breathing I have found to work best is to inhale deeply for 3 strides, right, left, right, and then exhale forcefully for 3 strides, left, right, left. So Steve came up with these little sayings: standing tall, 1, 2, 3, breathing out, 1, 2, 3. And he used those little sayings to become better at his breathing. And he found that as he did that, he trained his brain to not worry, because his brain knew when the next burst of oxygen was coming due to being trained in that rhythmic state. Wow. So you see where I'm going with this. Steve, guy was a genius. He was so far ahead of his time in so many ways. And I find it a little ironic that Chris Henshaw calls it power breathing or power breathe. I don't remember exactly, but the word power is in there. Is it possible that Chris Henshaw studied Steve Reeves somehow? And, here we are. Steve has been gone since 2000, but in 2022, we still have people outside of bodybuilding being influenced perhaps by techniques that Steve pioneered. Now, I don't know if Steve studied rhythmic breathing somewhere else or if he just came up with it on his own. I've read through Power Walking twice, and I don't remember him talking about being influenced by any outside sources with rhythmic breathing. I believe that he came up with it on his own. So, to close out this segment, Steve enjoyed doing a variety of activities. He enjoyed bicycling. I've talked a little bit about how he would take his road bike and ride 40 miles out. And if you ride 40 miles out, then you got to ride 40 miles home to Valley Center. Neighbors say that they would see Steve on his bike 40 miles outside of Valley Center. So we know he enjoyed biking. He did it regularly up until a certain age. He enjoyed working out with weights, as we know. He enjoyed swimming and being in the pool and doing his swimming exercises for his shoulders. I wonder if Steve might have enjoyed CrossFit. I find that interesting. All right, in the next segment and the last segment for today, Rolf, ROLF, asks, how much weight does Steve Reeves use per exercise? Well, I don't know exactly. That is the million-dollar question. And, you know, these are the reasons that I enjoy doing these videos, because I get people that ask me questions about Steve. And, you know, these are just guys having a conversation. I am not an expert on Steve, but I do enjoy digging a little bit deeper and, you know, trying to pinpoint how much weight did he use? How much did he bench press? What was his max bench press? We don't know. So I came up with some numbers, but I want to start off first with an article by Alice Yarrick. Alice Yarrick was Ed Yarrick's wife, and the Yarricks, of course, spent a lot of time around Steve, and Steve trained at Ed Yarrick's gym in Oakland, California. So I'm just going to read this here. Building the Classic Physique the Natural Way by Steve Reeves, John Little, and Bob Wolf, PhD. Alice Yarrick recalls being around Steve, what he was like from her perspective, and some of the weights that he used in the gym. So, you know, here we go. We're going to find out some of the weights. Now, some of you out there may already know these numbers and some may not. Rolf, I hope this helps. Remember, Steve trained under the supervision of Alice's husband, Ed Yarrick, of Yarrick's Gym in Oakland, California. And by the way, there is the wall right behind me there. And we know that before going to Yarrick's Gym, Steve was working out in his garage gym in Oakland, California. And that is the holy grail of bodybuilding right there, as it's been called, because Steve wrote down his numbers on that wall, that section which George Helmer, crazy story, cut out of the owners who lived in that house long after Steve had moved out. But that is Steve's very first routine. Well, he outgrew his garage gym and he joined Yarrick's Gym. Alice says, as a bodybuilder, Steve did not participate in Olympic or heavy weightlifting. Bodybuilders train differently than weightlifters, although Steve built up to half squats, parallel squats, with 400 pounds. So there you go. He built up to parallel squats with 400 pounds. How many reps did he do? I'm not sure. Did he do 8 to 12 like he did with most of his movements? Possibly. She says, he used 75 pounds in each hand on the incline curl. And remember, Steve says he does 5 to 7 reps on this exercise in building the classic physique the natural way. On page 178. Now, typically he did 8 to 12 reps. For abs and calves, he would do 25 reps. So on incline curls, he stuck with 5 to 7 reps. Why? Well, that's what worked best for him. Now, we also know that he mixed it up. Sometimes he would do more reps, maybe 10 to 12 or up to 15. But these are his words, 5 to 7 reps. He says, Steve, that he did 1 rep with 90-pound dumbbells, 1 in each hand, on page 153 of Building the Classic Physique. 90 pounds. And he was very strict. That's amazing. And, you know, he built a stop bar so that his arms couldn't swing and sway. I was talking to somebody recently about incline dumbbell curls. And, I think 35-pound dumbbells is about my max right now with good form. He did 90 for 1 rep. He used 110-pound dumbbells on the incline presses. This is Alice Yarick again. And he did 20 reps on the calf raise with 450 pounds. So in one area, he said he did 25 reps for calves. In another area, he said he did 20 reps for calves, or Alice Yarick said he did 20 reps. So he tended to mix up his weights. Outside of this, there are stories of Steve cleaning a 220-pound barbell while on his knees. I would love to see that. For me, doing a clean, so in this case, he would be, I'm assuming the barbell is on the floor as opposed to it hanging. I'm not sure. Was it a power clean from the knees? Was it a hang clean from the knees? Steve was tall, so maybe he was hanging and then lifting it from there. I would love to see that. So if any of you guys can do a 220-pound barbell clean while on your knees, and I believe Armand Tanny was the other person that was able to do it. We know he was strong. That's my point. That takes strength. There is the picture of Steve doing the wide grip deadlift with what we think is 300 plus pounds that he performed as a display of strength while at York Barbell in 1950 when he was training for the Mr. Universe. I've seen talk that he also used that method to widen the shoulders, but he wasn't using 300 pounds for shrugs like that. I could see him doing a deadlift with 300. I have a hard time seeing him do 10 or 15 reps with 300 pounds on that wide grip deadlift. Once again, we don't know. There's nothing to show that he did. There's no video, there's no Alice Yarick, there's no Ed Yarick. So we don't know. Even George Helmer wasn't around at that time. Steve loved art, beautiful things. For example, he said that horses were just about the most beautiful creature God ever created. I'm paraphrasing. He treasured the Sèvres vase that he was awarded for the 1948 Mr. World. So medium heavy weights, generally speaking, is what Steve used. Conversations for front squats. I had this conversation with George Helmer. Front squats around 300 pounds is what we thought Steve would do for reps in the front squat. Pull-ups with attached weight. So, that takes strength. So to sum up, I'm going to give you some of my best guesses based upon readings, discussion, and my own gym experience. Tell me what you think. Am I completely wrong or am I on track? And these are not Steve's actual weights, but they could be 8 to 12 reps, remember. So wide grip upright rows for shoulders, 95 to 115 pounds. That is wide grip. That's how he started off his workout, shoulders. And I've been doing a lot of full body workouts lately. I should say I've been doing upper body and then legs. To do full body is, for me right now, I would have to go too light and I would have to probably be in the gym for 2.5 hours. Maybe someday I'll do that. Press behind the neck. I'm guessing 115 to 135 pounds. 135 pounds pressing behind the neck, probably not coming all the way down, but stopping in here somewhere because it really puts your shoulders in a dangerous position. Presses behind the neck, barbell, 8 to 12 reps. Dumbbell laterals, 40 to 50 pounds. My guess, 8 to 12 reps. Wide grip bench press. Wide grip. When you come down wide, mechanically, you're not in as strong of a position as when you're doing regular bench presses. My guess, 185 to 205 pounds. Remember, he just trained his shoulders, not going to be as strong. Wide grip incline bench press, same weight, 185, 205 pounds. Dumbbell incline press, 110 pounds. That's what Alice Yarrick said. There's also the picture of him on the cover of Power Building, and you can see that looks like a lot of weight. May have been 120, 125 pounds in each hand for dumbbell incline presses. Pull-ups behind the neck, weighted. How much weight? I don't know. I'm just guessing. Probably a dumbbell, 40, 50 pounds, 8 to 12 reps. Dumbbell rowing, alternate dumbbell rowing, I'm guessing. Probably could use as much weight as he wanted. I'm guessing that the gym didn't have much more than 110, 120, 25 pound dumbbells. So that would be my guess. Dumbbell row, 110, 125 pound dumbbells. Cable row, I remember being in a commercial gym and the stack had 300 pounds. So I'm guessing for 8 to 12 reps. Remember though, when he did his rowing, I got to find my camera angle here. He didn't lean back like that. He leaned forward and he maintained that position. If you look around, you'll see pictures. So mechanically, once again, he's not as strong in that position as he is if he leans back. I read somewhere where Steve said Arnold did it wrong, and he called out some more greats. It worked for Arnold. We're just talking about Steve. So cable row in that position, wow, now that I think about it, I would say somewhere between 220 to 250 pounds. Hyperextensions, this is the last one I'm going to address. Well, we know he used weight on the hyperextension. He talks about that in the book. And this is what was interesting, is that if you saw my short video recently that I did on the hyperextension that Bo Derek trained on, that Steve trained Bo Derek on at his Valley Center Ranch, Steve talks about that piece of equipment in the book. Steve made that hyperextension. I didn't know that. But I do know, after talking with George Helmer, that Steve was always making add-ons, like, you know, to enhance his workout for his universal multi-station. He created some little tweaks and changes that he would add, you know, to the machine to make it more user-friendly for him. Like the pull-down bar on the multi-station universal, when it hung, and he would hit his head on it. So he created a latch that he could latch the pull-down bar at the top, and then he could walk around without banging his head. So hyperextensions, we know he added weight. It wasn't much, obviously. He did 30 reps for one set. This is later on, as he talks about, you know, I'm guessing 20 pounds, something like that. So the main reason I'm bringing up the hyperextension is because I just realized that he made that piece of equipment. I didn't know that. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for today. So keep bringing me questions, your comments, and if you know anything different to the contrary that I've talked about here, I'd love to hear it. Finally, I had a gentleman ask me, I'm having a hard time figuring out which way to turn here. Finally, I had somebody ask me recently, more than one guy, about the wall there. They said, hey, Scott, you should get a professional picture done of the wall, take the frame off so that you don't have that glare and all that good stuff, and then create a poster of the wall. And so I've had a few guys ask me that recently. It is a great idea. It's very inspiring to see that, whether it's the actual thing or a poster, and it should be made into a poster. And, you know, I can get the proper measurements and all the little details, as opposed to somebody just taking a picture of it off the, you know, internet and using that to make a poster, which would be kind of cheesy. So we can get the authentic version. If you like that idea, let me know. And if there is enough interest, we could certainly do that. That would be a lot of fun, and it would be very inspiring for you, and to have up in your gym. Home gyms are becoming more and more common, more and more popular. So I think that's a great idea. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.